Hi everyone. So I started getting ready for work and I thought I'd sit down and actually turn the camera on because I have a few things to say around what's going on right now, which is going to affect, I guess, the content of my channel this year. So if you're looking for a distraction from the C word, coronavirus, this is probably not going to be it. This might not be the happiest of videos because, you know, desperate times call for desperate measures. There's a lot of light-hearted content on the web, on Netflix, and unfortunately this is not going to be it. This is the reality, is that it is going to affect so many people in so many ways, including myself. You know, with coronavirus, a lot of people understandably are, you know, staying at home when they can. They're trying to stay safe, try not to give themselves too much exposure to other people so that they can minimize their risk of contracting the virus, which I think if you can, definitely do that. I'm finding it really hard to talk right now, but what I'm trying to say is that it is one of those things that a lot of people are scared about, and understandably so, because it is a very contagious virus and it can have severe impacts on people who, you know, have immune systems that are compromised, that they have underlying health issues, that are older and have lung problems, asthma, things like that. It can affect so many people. It can actually be really, really fatal to those vulnerable groups. And so I can totally understand people taking extra precautions. Now, the unfortunate downside of this means that we are going to have a recession, and that is inevitable. So many people already have lost their jobs, have had their jobs cut back. We actually have a cleaner who comes in fortnightly. I've asked her to come in now once a week just to help her out with, you know, the shifts that's getting cut from her other job. And, you know, a lot of people who are casual staff have basically lost their jobs, and that's the that is the unfortunate downside of what has happened, because people aren't going to restaurants, people aren't traveling, people have cancelled their hotels and their Airbnbs, and it's going to affect our income as well, because we do have various investments that are directly linked to retail and hospitality and tourism. So, you know, now is not the time to try not to panic. Definitely try not to panic. I find it myself very difficult to try not to panic because, you know, we have a family, we have to put food on the table, we have mortgages, and there are so many people who are worse off than me who've lost their jobs, and I am fortunate that I still have my day job. Now I feel like is the time, instead of panicking, to think about how we are going to make through this next couple months, the next year, because I'm not sure how long these conditions are going to last for, possibly even longer than a year. And what that means to me is, how can I buffer myself from financial hardship? I am fortunate that I'm not in absolute dire straits. Like I said, I'm very fortunate that I'm not in the position, but I have to be sensible. And so what I have decided with my husband and with my sister is that we are just going to do a no buy, and we're going to put that on ourselves to make our discretionary expenses basically zero. And what I mean by discretionary expenses is that any expenses that aren't part of our living expense. Our living expense is kind of like what we need in order to live on a day-to-day basis. So things like groceries and, you know, paying our mortgage, things like that. And then discretionary expenses is anything on top that might enhance our lives but aren't necessities, that aren't essentials. Things like, you know, going out to eat and buying makeup, buying clothes. So because of these times, these unprecedented times, we as a family have decided to cut our discretionary expenses as far back as possible. And what I am myself am going to pledge to do is do a low buy on any makeup, clothes, and my own discretionary expenses, which may seem really extreme for someone who has never done that before, who's never had the necessity to do that before. But we live in times where, you know, we've never seen this kind of thing. So I want to kind of fatten my buffer in case things don't perk up in the next 3 months, in the next 6 months. Now is definitely not the time to be spending all of that discretionary expense on things that might make me feel better temporarily, but that is going to hurt me in the future. And it is definitely very difficult because, you know, obviously you want to support your businesses, you want to support all these places, but you absolutely foremost need to protect yourself, need to look after yourself. As someone who has investments linked to these industries that are failing, I cannot, you know, it would be silly for me to just ignore that and just keep spending away. Another thing that I've noticed is that a lot of retail shops are doing sales. They are trying to liquidate as much stock as possible to build up their cash reserves in order for us to save as much as possible. I am staying clear away of those, and I do encourage you, if you're in the same situation, to do the same. This is not something that is going to go away. This is something that is going to affect people's jobs, people's livelihoods. So I do think that in order to protect yourself, you know, you have to revisit your budget. Like, I'm not that old, but I've not seen anything like this. I think this is worse than the GFC, it seems. I actually looked at my super the other day and it's literally dropped by about 5%. Luckily, I'm not retiring anytime soon, but I imagine for those who need to access the super soon, it's just such a terrible time. And I really feel for people in that situation. And I personally never want to get to a place where I am relying on my super to kind of live. Rather, you know, have that as a little bit of extra rainy day money. But there are definitely people out there that are struggling, living paycheck to paycheck. I mean, it's heartbreaking. It's really sad. We just have to do what we can. And if that means I need to rein back in that discretionary spending, then I'm going to do that. So I am not, you're not going to see me review any new, not that I really do, but you are not really going to see me review any kind of like new makeup or anything like that on my channel. I'm gonna do this no buy for approximately 3 months, see how things are going, and I might extend it. So it's kind of like an indefinite no buy. But I think the fact that this is something that I feel we need to do is what is going to motivate me to do it, because I feel like in the past I've done things like this, but because there's been no necessity, I've kind of reneged on that, which is not great. But when it comes to things like protecting my family, I really take that seriously, and so, you know, that's why I've decided to do this, which people might say is extreme, but I think you've got to be smart in times like this, especially if you're in an industry that is in tourism, hospitality, retail. Just got to be really careful, because this is not something that's going to blow over anytime soon. That is basically the main update that I wanted to give on my channel, is that, yeah, I'm going to be on a no buy. A self-imposed but necessary no buy. How are you guys feeling amidst this pandemic, this global pandemic? Are you feeling kind of similar to me? Yeah, I imagine so many of you guys are affected as well. Like, this is something that's global. Yeah, I'm definitely not the only one in this situation. And I honestly hope that all of you can get through this, because it will pass, but it's a question of when. I'm also definitely cognizant of the fact that I am an influencer. I have influence people to buy things. I don't want to really influence people to buy things when, you know, money is tight, when you don't know when you're going to get your next paycheck. And so when I do use products, I want to say to you, please go look through your dupes first. You don't need to buy the exact same eyeshadow or anything that I'm using. You probably have something similar in your collection, maybe. I know it can be really hard sometimes to watch YouTubers talk about all these things and how amazing it is, how great it is. I definitely feel that responsibility to tell you guys not to spend money. Like, I know it's not my place to tell people how to spend their money, but at the same time, I just don't want to tell people to buy something. I don't want to be the one encouraging the spending, especially in times like this. If I recommend something, you know, and you feel like you have the means to go buy that, by all means. But I do encourage people to shop their stash. Please find dupes in your collection and everything before you go out and buy. Because in the end of the day, all this stuff, it's makeup. It's for fun. It's not absolutely necessary. But I do want to just put that disclaimer out there, is please think hard and long before someone recommends you something and you go ahead and buy it, because once you spend that money, it's gone. I think YouTube definitely can be a dangerous place, because in the end of the day, it's a lot about consumerism. Makeup content is a lot about consumerism. So it definitely can be hard to stop yourself from buying something that you don't necessarily need. And let's face it, makeup is not necessary. But obviously makeup does have a kind of unquantifiable positive impact as well. It can be good for your mental health. So I can understand why people go out and buy a palette that they've been lusting after, that they end up loving and using all the time. It putting on a face of makeup, definitely, it feels great. It lifts your spirits. We just have to be careful with how we spend our precious money. I think a lot of people are prepping for, you know, staying inside for 3 months, and they've bought so much toilet paper and so much meat, and they've bought all their eggs in the supermarket. I kind of think that's a bit overkill, again, because that's a lot of money as well. I think people need to prep for the financial situation that is to come, which is the recession. So basically what I've been doing is looking through our expense statements and seeing what can we cut, what subscriptions can we cut. We've already cut Netflix. I know it seems a bit silly, but $20 a month, that adds up. And in the end of the day, I can just watch normal TV. I can watch SBS on demand. A lot of things are streamed. I think like there's a pretty good selection on regular TV. I don't know, maybe I'm one of the few people that hasn't got Netflix. I definitely don't feel my life is any worse without it. And I don't know when this video is going up, but I probably am going to put it up before my other videos. But I've actually did a monthly rental subscription because I wanted to try it out, and I'm going to cancel that too because it's not a necessity. It's nothing that I need in my life. It's nice to have, for sure. I loved being able to rent some amazing clothes, but I'm not going to do that during times like these. I also do encourage you to do the same and see where we can trim the fat, whether or not you can put more into your kind of rainy day account, the account that you don't touch except for emergencies, things like that. Of course, I know not everyone's going to be in this situation. There are also winners as well in this whole situation. I mean, the supermarkets are killing it. They are absolutely raking in. They're struggling, honestly, to keep the stock replenished. So there are obviously people that don't necessarily have to do that, which is lucky, but I would say that the majority of us are probably going to feel it. So yeah, I'm sorry if this is a super depressing message, but I feel like a lot of people are talking about the health side and not thinking about the economic side, which I think is going to affect people so badly. You know, obviously when you're having that financial strain, it affects your mental health, it affects your family life and everything. And I don't know, it's just like I said, people aren't really thinking about it or talking about it now because the immediate things that we're hearing on news all the time is about like washing your hands and being hygienic, and those are important things, but I think the economic side of it is too. And I'm not saying don't go support your local businesses, because for example, things like soap, which I consider a necessary expense, so it's a living expense, I'm buying it from a local business rather than my Woolies. I'd rather buy it from someone that hand makes it themselves. I actually do have a soap subscription on which I've just started, and I am actually looking forward to getting my soap. So where I can, I'm definitely going to be trying to support those local businesses because I know they need a lot of help too. If I can buy something that we consider a living expense from a local business, I will definitely do that. So yeah, instead of trying to panic too much and trying to think of worst case scenario, I'm just trying to prepare myself for what is going to come. So yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to get off my chest. I just wanted to kind of tell you guys what I'm doing to prep our family beyond, you know, safe hygiene practices and self-quarantine if required. I'm sorry if this was kind of depressing. I didn't sugarcoat it, but I do think that these things are important to talk about. It's important to talk about money. It's important to talk about finances. People don't talk about that because they'd rather just shut their eyes and not think about it. But I do think that this is something that's really important beyond prepping with, you know, food stocks and things like that. But I definitely do encourage you guys to think about how you'll be preparing, you know, your financial situation as well. I definitely wanted to do that in the midst of like all these shops doing sales and things like that. Like, it's very tempting to go and buy right now. I do think it is wise to have a plan around what you will do in the case where unfortunately your shifts are cut back or there is a redundancy. It's things that people don't think about, unfortunately, until it happens. So yeah, that's just what I wanted to put out there. Hopefully next video is going to be a lot cheerier than this one, but I did feel like it was important enough to kind of put out there. Anyway, I hope you guys are staying safe, staying healthy, and that you're gonna get through this, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.